Chapter 10, Foundations. Dawn came too early, though Zeno had been awake for hours. Every time he'd closed his eyes, he'd seen Kale's face when he learned about Zenith's death, and felt that crushing weight of power that had filled the room. His new teacher was operating on a level Zeno couldn't even comprehend. Kale was already waiting in the training yard, perfectly still, watching the sun rise with calm contemplation. "You're early," Kale said without turning. "That's good. Shows discipline." "I couldn't sleep." Also good. Means you understand the magnitude of what you're beginning. Kale finally turned to face him. "Before we start, I want to make something clear. What Stone, Shadow, and Rose taught you was survival training. What I'm going to teach you is mastery. How to transcend survival and become something exceptional." He gestured for Zeno to stand opposite him. "Your father created something revolutionary with the pressure point technique, but creation and mastery are different things. You're starting with his completed work, which gives you an advantage he never had. But it also means you risk learning the technique without understanding the fundamentals that make it possible." Kale settled into a neutral stance. "So we're going to start at the very beginning, not with pressure points. With the foundation, everything else is built upon." "What foundation?" "Understanding energy." Kale raised one hand, palm up. The air above his hand seemed to shimmer, not quite visible, but Zeno could sense something. A distortion, a presence, like heat waves rising from sun-baked stone. "Everything living has energy flowing through it," Kale explained. "Most people never learn to sense it consciously, though their instincts respond to it. When you feel someone watching from behind, when you sense danger before seeing it, that's your unconscious mind reading energy patterns." The shimmer grew more pronounced, and Zeno felt something in his chest respond, like his own energy trying to reach toward Kale's. "Your father's pressure point technique works by disrupting or redirecting that energy flow at vulnerable points. But to truly master it, you must first learn to consciously sense energy in yourself, in others, in the space around you." Kale closed his hand and the shimmer disappeared. "That's what we'll work on first. You must learn to see what most people cannot." "My father mentioned seeing energy flow," Zeno said. "He said it was an advanced skill." "It is. Most practitioners never develop it." Kale extended his hand. "But your father created tools to help. Show me the contacts." Zeno retrieved them from his pack. The silver contact lenses in their protective case, looking deceptively simple for something so valuable. Kale examined them with careful attention. Remarkable work. Zenith managed to translate energy perception into visual information. Wearing these, you can see what normally requires years of training to sense. He handed them back. "Put them in." Zeno carefully inserted the contacts, blinking as his eyes adjusted. They felt strange, but not uncomfortable. "Now," Kale said, "I'm going to have you activate them manually, consciously, not by rote. I want you to understand the mechanism. Close your eyes. Focus inward. Feel for that pulling sensation you experienced a moment ago. Follow it to its source." Zeno closed his eyes and tried to focus. At first, nothing but his heartbeat and breathing. But gradually, as he relaxed, he began to sense something else, a warmth in his chest, near where the medallion rested. Not the medallion itself, but something deeper, pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. "Good," Kale said. somehow sensing his progress. That's your energy center. Now, try to extend that feeling outward. Don't force it, just invite it to flow. Zeno imagined the warmth spreading, moving from his chest up through his neck, into his head, toward his eyes. The contacts tingled. Open your eyes. Zeno opened them and gasped. Kale stood before him, but now Zeno could see lines of light flowing through his body. Intricate pathways that pulsed with energy, like luminescent rivers beneath the skin. The patterns were complex, beautiful, and overwhelming in their detail. "You're seeing my energy flow," Kale said, and Zeno watched the pattern shift as he spoke. "This is what your father's contacts reveal, the normally invisible pathways that energy travels through the body. Brighter flow means more activity. Darker areas show blockages or vulnerability points." Kale raised his arm, and Zeno watched the energy concentrate more heavily in the limb. Pressure points are locations where these pathways converge or become vulnerable. Strike the right point with the right force and intention, and you can disrupt the entire system. He began moving through a kata, and Zeno watched in fascination as the energy patterns flowed and adapted with each movement. Concentrating here, withdrawing there, creating a constantly shifting map of vulnerability and strength. Now, deactivate the contacts. Draw the energy back to your center. It took several moments, but Zeno managed it. The luminous pathways faded, and Kale returned to normal appearance. "Over the coming weeks, you'll practice this constantly," Kale said. "Your father's contacts are a tool, but like any tool, they require skill to use properly. Right now, you're seeing information without understanding what it means. My job is to teach you to read the language of energy." The rest of the morning was brutal. Kale had them fight basic combat with practice weapons, but with Zeno maintaining contact activation while trying to read energy patterns during active sparring. It was frustratingly difficult. The contacts would activate. Zeno would see Kale's energy patterns. Then Kale would strike, and Zeno would lose focus, deactivating the contacts in the process. Again and again, Kale's staff found openings. "You're seeing the energy concentrate in my arm," Kale said after one particularly clean hit. "That tells you I'm about to strike, but you're waiting to see it happen instead of reading the intention and moving preemptively. Strike. Your own energy is chaotic right now, scattered between maintaining the contacts and trying to fight. Learn to partition your attention, not divide it. Strike. You deactivated when I fainted. That means you're still thinking of the contacts as separate from your natural perception. They need to become as automatic as breathing. Strike." By midday, Zeno was exhausted, bruised, and hadn't landed a single successful counter. But he'd managed to keep the contacts activated for increasingly longer periods, and twice he'd actually read Kale's intention clearly enough to begin a defensive movement before the strike fully developed. "Enough," Kale finally said. "You've done better than I expected on the first day. Most students wouldn't be able to activate the contacts without meditation. Over lunch, simple rice and vegetables." Kale returned to theory. Understanding energy flow is crucial because not everyone's energy flows identically. Bodies vary. Injuries, training, even emotional states can alter patterns. He pulled out a scroll covered in diagrams similar to those in Zenith's journal. "The pressure points your father identified are locations where pathways converge or become vulnerable, regardless of individual variation. But truly advanced practitioners learned to read individual patterns and identify unique vulnerabilities. Is this what my father was working toward? Zeno asked. Yes. The contacts were meant to accelerate that process. Give practitioners the ability to see patterns they couldn't sense naturally. But Zenith never finished developing the advanced applications. He was killed before. Kale's voice tightened. Before he could complete the work. They sat in silence for a moment. The techniques he did complete, Zeno said carefully. Are they dangerous to learn? All combat techniques are dangerous, but the lethal applications specifically. Kale met his eyes. Yes, extremely dangerous, and not just to your targets. Attempting lethal pressure point combinations without perfect understanding and control can result in energy backflow that damages the user. Your father documented warnings about this throughout the journal. Will you teach me those techniques? Eventually, but not yet. First, you need to master the fundamentals so completely that the advanced techniques become natural extensions. Kale closed the scroll. Right now, if you attempted a lethal combination, you'd likely injure yourself more seriously than your opponent. In a few months, with proper training, that equation will reverse. The afternoon focused on pure energy reading. No combat, just observation. Kale would shift his energy in different patterns, and Zeno had to identify what action he was preparing for. The way energy concentrated differently for punching versus kicking. How defensive preparations look distinct from offensive ones. The subtle differences between a feint and a genuine commitment. It was mentally exhausting in ways physical training never was. By evening, Zeno's head ached and his eyes felt strained despite the contacts causing no physical discomfort. That's enough for today, Kale said, recognizing the signs. Rest is as important as training. Push too hard, and you'll damage your ability to perceive energy altogether. That night, lying in his simple quarters, Zeno reflected on what he'd learned. One day with Kale had taught him more about the pressure point technique than weeks of studying his father's journal alone. The path ahead was clearer now. Not easier, but clearer. He activated the contacts one more time before sleeping, looking at his own hand in the darkness. The energy pathways glowed softly, and he marveled at the beauty and complexity of what his father had discovered. Somewhere out there, Iris was alive. The enemies who destroyed their family were still searching for this knowledge. But every day he trained, every skill he learned, brought him closer to being strong enough to face them. The real training had begun.